At 2 years of marriage, Alexander Pierce's first love, Paige Hamilton, returned to New York after her divorce. That night, my husband, who had never spent a single night away, didn't come home. In the past, my mother-in-law, Isabel, had offered me $5 million to leave. I refused. Now I'd changed my mind. This time, I would be the one to ask for $10 million and grant him the divorce. After all, the daughter-in-law that old woman had always wanted was now a divorced-free woman, so she would surely be thrilled for me to clear the way. At 6 a.m., I knocked on my mother-in-law's bedroom door. 10 minutes later, the Pierce family was in an uproar. 2 hours later, Alexander Pierce received the divorce agreement with my signature on it. That same night as I danced, pressed against an attractive young man in an exclusive club on the Upper East Side, Alexander Pierce's men shut the entire place down. "Elena, what in God's name is this nonsense?" Instead of making breakfast, my mother-in-law screamed, looking at me furiously from her doorway, her permed hair a mess. "And what is that skirt? Are you trying to disgrace the Pierce name?" She pointed at my miniskirt, trembling with rage. Alexander liked women who were pure as a lily, with dark hair, a white blouse, and a long skirt. His mother, like a mantra, always said, "Now that you are a Pierce, you must maintain your decency and not show your legs and arms." It's an embarrassment to the family. For 2 years of marriage, Elena Foster had almost forgotten I had such fair, beautiful legs. Before they went to waste, I had to show them off to the world. Seeing that I didn't respond, she thought I had cowered again. She started shouting, pointing her finger at me. "Go upstairs and change right now. Then get down to the kitchen and make breakfast. I want proper eggs Benedict today, the way it's supposed to be made." I slapped her finger away. "Mrs. Pierce, let's make a deal." "What did you just call me?" She stared at me with a strange expression. "Elena, have you lost your mind?" A short while later, I was sitting on the sofa and Mrs. Pierce was across from me, her hair still slightly disheveled, her face pale and drawn. The woman who always maintained an elegant and impeccable appearance had lost her composure for the third time in one day. "Are you saying you want $10 million in exchange for divorcing Alexander?" "Yes." My sister-in-law Caroline Pierce looked at me with contempt. "Elena, do you really think you can divorce my brother when you're so madly in love with him?" I ignored her and spoke directly to Mrs. Pierce. "Exactly. 2 years ago, you offered me $5 million to leave Alexander. I refused then. I've reconsidered. However, Alexander's value has doubled since he married me, so it's only natural that my value doubles as well. It's not an excessive request, is it? You're completely insane. Where's Alexander? Get Alexander down here." I crossed my arms, leaning back on the sofa with a faint smile. "No need to call him. He didn't come home last night. If I'm not mistaken, since Miss Paige Hamilton returned yesterday, they must have spent the night together." Mrs. Pierce's face changed visibly. Caroline, on the other hand, exclaimed with joy, "Oh, Paige is back. No wonder my brother seemed so happy yesterday." Mrs. Pierce shot her a death glare, and Caroline immediately fell silent. As much as they disliked me, a cheating scandal wouldn't look good for the family. "You've always liked her, haven't you? Now you have the chance for her to become your real daughter-in-law. $10 million. It's not excessive, is it?" I gently tapped the table and slid the divorce agreement I had prepared toward her. "If you agree, I won't touch a single cent of the marital assets." Mrs. Pierce snatched the documents immediately. Indeed, it was clearly stipulated that Elena Foster would leave with nothing but what she brought, without claiming any alimony. Still, she looked at me suspiciously. "Elena, what are you scheming? It's not like you to give up so easily." I shook my head and sighed. How could I explain it? Imagine if someone used your toothbrush to clean the toilet. Would you want to use it again? My analogy successfully disgusted her. She looked at me with repulsion. "Of course, with your humble origins, even the way you speak is vulgar. No wonder Alexander hasn't managed to love you in 2 years. How can you compare to Paige? That's precisely why I'm giving you an opportunity. Think about it." "Mom, what is there to think about? This is a golden opportunity." "Accept it quickly," Caroline insisted. She was very close friends with Paige and had seen me as an intruder from the beginning, but it didn't matter. I used to tolerate her for being my sister-in-law, but now that we would be strangers, I had no reason to put up with her anymore. 10 minutes later, I received the money. I went upstairs and came down with the suitcase I had already packed. Downstairs, almost the entire Pierce family was sitting in the living room. Even my father-in-law, Mr. Richard Pierce, a man who was always strict and silent. The truth is, he had never treated me badly, never made things difficult for me, and had always shown concern for my family. That's why before leaving, I approached him and gave him a sincere hug. Mr. Pierce, I suppose this is the last time I'll call you that. Please take good care of your health, bundle up in the winter for your legs, and have the staff make you rich bone broth more often. I saw the gray hairs sprinkled in his hair. He sighed lightly and gestured for me to come closer. In front of everyone, he handed me a card. There's $10 million in here too. It's not much, but take it. Inside, I screamed with joy. I had lost a husband and love, but I had $20 million. It would take a while just to count the zeros. It would take my father 20 years of hard work to earn that money. I didn't refuse it and accepted it gratefully. Thank you very much, Mr. Pierce. How cheap, Caroline muttered. At that moment, my mood had improved so much that it wasn't worth arguing with her. I put the card away safely, said goodbye to my father-in-law, and left the house dragging my suitcase. 2 hours later, the divorce papers with my signature arrived at Alexander Pierce's office, delivered by his assistant. Mr. Pierce, this is the divorce agreement from Mrs. Pierce. She said to call her once you've signed it. Alexander was so busy he didn't even look up. Leave it there. I'm busy, sir. I think you should take a look, the assistant added quietly. Alexander frowned slightly, but when he saw the words divorce agreement in large letters on the white paper, the hand holding his pen stopped. He took the thin sheets and flipped through the pages, his gaze finally stopping on the signature Elena Foster. However, just a few seconds later, Alexander handed the documents back to the assistant. Call that woman and tell her I'll be home at 8 p.m. But tonight you also have the welcome party for Miss Paige Hamilton. Alexander's eyes flashed coldly. Leave. The assistant didn't dare to linger and replied hastily. Unfortunately for him, I had blocked Alexander and his entire circle. If the family's golden retriever had an Instagram account, I would have blocked it too. Sir, I believe Mrs. Pierce has blocked my number. The assistant's voice trembled. Alexander's face darkened even more. He picked up his own phone and dialed Elena's name himself. Unfortunately, he didn't know he had been the first on the block list. He put the phone down, took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, and lit one. Get out of here. After finishing the entire cigarette, Alexander tried to calm himself and refocus on work, but then he received a call from Caroline. Brother, I have bombshell news. You're finally rid of that clingy Elena. Now you can make your love with Paige a reality. You won't have to avoid coming home to see her anymore. Aren't you happy? Surprised Caroline. Speak clearly. What happened? What did Elena do now? Alexander jumped up, loosening his tie nervously. Just for not coming home one night, Elena had created this whole mess. Hadn't she thought about the consequences if he signed those papers? Brother, Elena asked Mom for $10 million in exchange for divorcing you. She's already gone, but she only took her own things. She didn't touch anything from the Pierce family. I guess she has some conscience at least. Brother, I have to tell Paige this good news. As Caroline chattered excitedly, the phone went dead. Alexander grabbed his jacket and walked straight out. Where is Elena? He asked his assistant. I'm sorry, sir, nobody knows. Mrs. Pierce has blocked all our numbers. Alexander felt anger rising in his throat, but he was a man of great self-control. He quickly regained his composure. She said to call her when I signed right. The assistant, watching his expression, answered cautiously. Mrs. Pierce said that if you sign, you can meet on Monday at 9 a.m. at the courthouse, and you'd better not be late. Alexander stood there, his face growing increasingly grim. After a moment, he took off his glasses and handed them to his assistant. Find out Mrs. Pierce's whereabouts. Inform me as soon as you know anything. Yes, sir. Prepare for the meeting. After saying this, Alexander turned and went back into his office. Today's project was crucial and would determine the direction of the Pierce Corporation for the next 5 years. He had worked day and night, even staying up all last night at the office to finish the proposal. Although Elena was causing a scene, he couldn't afford to play along with her childish games. For Alexander, work always came first. What happened with the Pierce family was no concern of mine. I also wasn't interested in what Alexander thought. At that moment, I was in the apartment my father had bought for me before I got married, hugging a teddy bear and crying my eyes out. Elena, stop crying already, said my best friend Anna, handing me a tissue, fed up with the situation. I took the tissue, dried my tears, and hugged the bear again to continue crying. I'm divorced. A divorcee at 25. My life is a tragedy. If I have to get married again in the future and can't find a man richer than Alexander, all the socialites in New York will laugh at me. Tonight we're going to drown our sorrows. A friend's sister just opened a club and they say all the eligible bachelors in New York hang out there. I looked up at Anna, my eyes red. Are they really handsome? Hotter than Alexander, girl? Even if they were uglier, at least they'd be younger, have more energy, and know how to comfort you better. Haven't you heard the saying that a college boy is harder than a diamond? Anna, wanting to knock some sense into me, pulled me up from the floor. Are you going to put on a sexy, beautiful dress right now and come de-stress with some hot college kid with me, or not? I hesitated for a moment and nodded. It had been 2 years and 1 month since I had worn a sexy dress. Before marrying Alexander, I used to walk around daily in shorts and crop tops. The first time I met Alexander was on a blind date my father forced me to go on. I was barely 20 and he was almost 30, which I found disgusting. And as expected, in the middle of summer, he showed up in a full suit and tie as if he had just come from an international negotiation. I, on the other hand, had pink-dyed hair, a strapless top, and shorts. My father almost fainted when he saw my hair. He tried to stammer some excuses to Alexander, but the words wouldn't come out. Alexander, unfazed, stood up politely and pulled out my chair. Since I had no intention of getting married, I behaved however I wanted. I focused on eating and drinking without showing the slightest decorum. My father shot me, warning glances, but I pretended not to see them. At the end of the meal, out of courtesy, Alexander walked me home. He was a reserved man, and I was in my prime party girl phase, so I thought that would be the end of it. However, a few days later, he asked me out again. My father beamed from ear to ear. "It seems you made a very good impression on him. It's very likely this marriage will go through," he said. I screamed in fury. "He likes me, but I'm not interested. That old cradle robber." My father shut me up with a single sentence. "You don't like him. My rival, old man Herrera, is moving heaven and earth, even hiring matchmakers to marry his daughter off to him." Hearing that, I was fired up. Monica Herrera wants him. Then I have to snatch him away. I started dating Alexander. At first, it was just to teach Monica a lesson. But after a few months, I fell into the love trap. I fell in love with Alexander. Madly, passionately, I threw myself into the fire. Love made me lose myself. He, with his calm demeanor, controlled everything, and even turned me into the ideal daughter my father had always dreamed of. Dark hair, long dresses, just how he liked it, and I was happy to comply. Until one day on his computer, I discovered a photo of him with Paige Hamilton from their college years. Paige, true to her preppy image, wore a white dress and had dark hair radiating purity. There was another boy in the photo, but she was between the two of them. However, to me, it was as if no one else was there. I was engrossed in the shy smile Paige gave Alexander. It turned out that Alexander didn't like Elena with long hair and a white dress. In his heart, like so many other men, there was a dull, ordinary first love. But at that moment, I loved him so much that I didn't dare to ask him about it. I was afraid that by doing so, the happiness I held in my hands would burst like a soap bubble. Besides, before Alexander and I got married, Paige had already married someone else, which I always considered a relief. But now Paige was back divorced. Thinking about how Alexander had taken care of her the night before, that they had surely been together all night, I felt tears welling up again. Anna quickly dragged me to the walk-in closet, rummaged through my wardrobe, and pulled out a tight, especially sexy black dress, putting it in my hands. She also secretly pulled out a new lingerie set. "Wear this. You've lost weight lately, and you look like a total knockout. This will give you a lifted bust, a wasp waist, and make even priests turn their heads." I pressed the clothes against me and looked at Anna with teary eyes. "Will it be okay? I'm a divorcee now. Shouldn't I dress more modestly?" Anna shot me a look as if she was about to hit me. "Elena, you're only 25. 25 is a woman's most splendid age. If you want to dress modestly, we can talk when you're 52. Okay. 225. Year. Old women, one in black and one in white, in tight, low-cut dresses and sky-high stilettos, entered the club swaying elegantly. At first, I felt a little strange. After 2 years of dressing modestly, suddenly being so sexy and eye-catching felt weird. But after one cocktail, I started to change my mind. I had signed the divorce papers, and surely Alexander would have gladly signed them too. Next week, we would go to the courthouse and it would all be over. From then on, we would have nothing to do with each other. The reason he agreed to marry me so suddenly was probably because of the pain of Paige getting married. I bit my lip, forcing back the tears. I moved away from the bar and even pulled down the neckline of my dress a little more. Stumbling, I took Anna's hand and we headed to the dance floor. On the floor, couples of men and women were dancing, pressed together passionately. I soon relaxed and regained the feeling of letting go. A handsome guy came over to talk to me. I glanced at him. Not bad. His eyes looked a little like Alexander's, so I reached out and grabbed him by the collar of his shirt. He immediately wrapped his arm around my waist and we danced closely like the other couples. I had never been so close to a stranger, and for a moment I instinctively wanted to push his hand away, but suddenly the music cut out. Everyone in the club turned in surprise. Suddenly, men in black suits who looked like bodyguards burst into the venue. The waiters and security staff were cornered. The bodyguards surrounded the dance floor. What are they doing? What's happening? Are they looking for someone? My drunkenness vanished in a flash. Without a doubt, they were coming for someone. For me. I could already see Alexander Pierce walking through the crowd. He approached with his long legs without hesitation. He wasn't wearing glasses, and his expression was extremely cold. My heart skipped a beat. I instinctively tried to hide behind people, but Alexander's sharp gaze had already cut through the crowd and fixed on my face. I was so scared I couldn't even look him in the eye. I immediately turned to flee. Elena. Alexander said my name. I knew him. The angrier he was, the calmer his voice became. At the beginning of our marriage, when he caught me drinking in secret, he called my name with the same calm voice. I remember that night vividly. I couldn't move from the bed for 2 days afterward. Thanks to that, I learned a lesson I would remember for the rest of my life, and for a while I obeyed his words docilely. Alexander, satisfied, bought me a lot of expensive jewelry to appease me. My feet were rooted to the spot. It was then that I realized the young man from before still had his hand on my waist. In an instant, the hair on my body stood on end, and I began to tremble. Alexander frowned, his face extremely stern, took a step forward, and the bodyguards following him cleared a path through the crowd. His gaze swept over my face, my white neck, my slender collarbones, and finally settled on my narrow waist. Oh, to be precise, on the young man's arm resting there. I immediately had a bad feeling. Just as I was about to open my mouth, Alexander suddenly reached out, grabbed the young man's wrist, and pushed him sharply aside. Small gasps of surprise rippled through the crowd. I shrank my neck. Like a frightened quail, my gaze wavered. I was afraid Alexander would get angry. To be exact, I loved him so much that I was enormously concerned about his emotions. If he was in a bad mood, I felt like the whole world was collapsing. But now, it was different. We were divorced, thinking that I found a new strength. I suddenly lifted my head and looked him straight in the eye. On the dance floor, there was only one spotlight from above. My shoulders and my white back were completely exposed. Alexander's bodyguards and assistant were discreet and didn't dare look at me. But that night, many other men had seen me. I had never seen Alexander's face look so terrifying. I even had the illusion that his most precious treasure had been snatched away. But I, Elena Foster, had never been his treasure. I felt my eyes turning red. Suppressing the pain in my heart, I lifted my chin firmly. Mr. Pierce, do you need something from me? Alexander stared at me for a few seconds with an inscrutable gaze. Suddenly, he took off his jacket, walked over, and draped it over me. He even buttoned it up tightly, completely enveloping me. I struggled to break free, but with one hand, he held me firmly in his arms. Elena, if we have something to talk about, we'll do it at home. I could clearly feel him containing his anger as he spoke to me, but that only made me sadder. He had probably come looking for me because he thought I had embarrassed him. After all, the divorce process wasn't finished yet, so I was still technically Mrs. Pierce. Mr. Pierce, I'm not going back with you, I refused firmly, trying to wriggle out of his arms. Alexander frowned and squeezed my shoulder slightly over the jacket to keep me from taking it off. Elena, how long are you going to keep this up? I'm not making a scene. I've already decided, and I've signed the divorce agreement. Mr. Pierce, don't tell me you can't read. A dead silence reigned around us. Even Alexander's trusted assistants were staring at me in disbelief. I pushed his hand away again and forcefully tore off the jacket, throwing it at him. So we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Stay out of my business. My action without a doubt enraged him to the extreme. His face became increasingly icy, and I trembled with fear inside. I was afraid that having humiliated him, he would lose control and lay a hand on me. During our marriage, he had never said a word to me louder than another, but I bit my lip, trying not to break down, though tears fell uncontrollably. It was Anna's fault for putting so much makeup on me. I was afraid it would run. If it ran, I would look like a ghost. I no longer had the courage to look Alexander in the eye. Every time I saw him, I felt desolate. My heart softened, and I couldn't bear the thought of leaving him. He was too handsome, especially when he was angry. He was the man who perfectly fit all my fantasies and tastes. Thinking about it, maybe the reason I sometimes provoked him on purpose was that every time with a cold face he unbuttoned his shirt, pushed me against the wall with one hand held my chin, and kissed me passionately, saying, "Elena, you really need to be taught a lesson." My heart would pound like a teenager's in her first love. During the 2 years of marriage to Alexander, I remained submerged in the fever of love. My obsession with him deepened every day. He was cold and rarely smiled. My father said it was the expression of a mature and serene man, but I knew very well it was because he didn't love me. Well, it's not that he hated me completely. When he was home, if I wasn't on my period, he wanted to fulfill his marital duties almost every night. But what did that matter? He's a man in his 30s in the prime of his vigor. His wife, me, was simply a legal and convenient tool. I lived in a fantasy, but at the same time I was painfully aware of reality. I knew I was walking step by step toward the edge of a cliff. The day he no longer needed me, I would surely fall into the abyss. I'm afraid of pain and death. And now that I have $20 million, I have even more reason not to die. That's why I had to leave him. I couldn't continue to be enthralled by him. I swallowed my tears, took a deep breath, and looked away. "Mr. Pierce, if you have nothing else to do here, please leave. This place is not appropriate for someone of your status." It was true. From the day I married him, my way of dressing, my hairstyle, my makeup, my way of speaking, my laughter, and even the places I could go were all strictly limited. If I deviated in the slightest, his mother would immediately accuse me of having humble origins, of not being up to his standard, and of embarrassing the family. The nightclub, a place I hadn't set foot in for 2.5 years. But now that I was no longer his wife, he no longer had the right to control me. Perhaps it was because of my tearful appearance, but Alexander's expression softened a little. "Elena, if you're angry with me, you should at least tell me why." Why, I thought to myself? And you dare to ask why? You keep photos of your first love on your computer. You mobilize the best lawyers from the Pierce Corporation to help Paige with her international divorce. And last year on my birthday, you said you had an important meeting abroad that you couldn't miss. And in the end, I saw you in an Instagram photo Caroline posted, having tea with Paige. While I spent my birthday alone and sad, you were beside the woman you love. You turned me into a clone of Paige to soothe your longing. Loving another, you demanded me every night. For 2 years of marriage, you didn't let me get pregnant. With the excuse that I was still young and it wasn't time to be a mother, that you weren't ready either. In reality, it was because you didn't want any ties, so you could easily get rid of me later and marry the woman you truly love. As soon as Paige got divorced and returned, you stopped coming home. And now that I've done what you wanted, you ask me why bitterness filled my heart. A knot of resentment rose from my chest to my throat, preventing me from uttering a single word. I could only let the tears fall silently. Perhaps because I was crying so inconsolably, Alexander's expression softened a little more. "Elena, let's go home." He approached again and put his jacket over my shoulders once more. Sobbing, I pushed him with all my strength. "Alexander, don't touch me. You disgust me when you touch me." He said nothing more. He stared at me with a darkened face. His gaze was so dark and terrifying that it made me feel as if I were the traitor in this marriage. Crying, I couldn't look at him anymore. I took Anna's hand and stumbled out of there. Alexander didn't follow me. As I was leaving, I heard his phone ring. His hello was extremely tender, but to me it sounded terribly discordant. It was surely Paige. Now they could have their date without interruptions. That night, I slept at Anna's. After showering, I threw myself into bed, turned off my phone, hugged a pillow, cried until I had no tears left, and fell asleep like a log. Anna understood me. She knew that at that moment, I didn't want anyone to bother me. Other than bringing me food, she didn't ask me anything. On Monday morning, I got up early, showered, applied my creams, and put on a red slip dress. Anna offered to take me to the courthouse, but I refused. This was the final point of my relationship with Alexander. Even if it was just to receive the divorce papers, I wanted to finish it with my own hands. On the outside, I seemed self-assured. Radiant makeup gave me a vibrant look like an innocent young woman, but no one knew how broken I was inside. Before leaving, I turned on my phone. Among countless messages and missed calls, there was only one unread WhatsApp message from Alexander. It was the one he had sent me the night before, and it just said, "Elena, I'll wait for you on Monday at 9 at the courthouse." A single sentence almost broke me. My hands trembled as I held the phone, but I held back the tears. I didn't want to have to take off my makeup and start over. I had to get divorced, looking my best. My lifelong arch-nemesis Monica Astor was surely waiting to see me humiliated. and that Caroline would also be waiting with her claws sharpened to enjoy the show. Even if I became a divorcee, I had to be the most beautiful divorcee in all of New York. The truth is, my relationship with Caroline hadn't always been so bad. After marrying Alexander, we sometimes went shopping together. I bought her some clothes and jewelry. Once she saw a pair of jade earrings Alexander had given me and begged me to give them to her with all sorts of flattery. My heart softened, and although it pained me, I gave them to her. However, when Alexander saw her wearing the earrings, he said only one thing: "Give those earrings back to your sister-in-law. Your skin is not as fair as hers. Jade doesn't suit you." That single sentence officially broke our relationship. It's easy for women to become mortal enemies. All it takes is for someone to say, "You're not as good as her at this." Even the closest friends can hate each other to death behind their backs. For 2 years, Caroline had provoked me many times, but I always endured it. But from now on, if she tried to pick a fight with me again, I would teach her a lesson. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and drove to the courthouse. I arrived at 8:40. Alexander was a methodical and principled man. If he said 9, he wouldn't deviate by a single minute. And so it was. Exactly at 9, his Bentley pulled up in front of the building. He got out of the car and walked directly toward mine. I also put on my sunglasses, opened the door, and got out. Under the sun, black hair, red lips, white skin, red dress, I burned like a flame. I got out of the car and, without looking at him, once walked straight inside. Alexander followed me into the lobby. I realized we were the only ones there to get a divorce that day. Alexander had pulled his strings again and cleared the place on purpose. I remembered what Anna had hinted at that morning. Her friends' club had been temporarily closed for disturbing the public peace. A total injustice. But if the pressure from Alexander Pierce was behind it all, no one would dare resist, and they would have no choice but to close. Anna whispered to me that Alexander's behavior seemed like that of a jealous husband angry with his wife. Maybe he wasn't entirely indifferent to me. I laughed to myself. He and the Pierce family were just desperate to save face. "Have you signed?" I asked, my chin held high. Alexander looked a little pale. "Why do you suddenly want a divorce?" Instead of answering, he asked me a question. "It's not sudden. I've been thinking about it for a long time." I could now face him calmly. "Elena? Is there someone else?" I was stunned. The nerve. He was the one who had been fooling around with his old girlfriend, and even spent the night out, and now he was accusing me of being the traitor. "Alexander, don't slander me." He looked at me indifferently. "If there's no one else, why do you want a divorce? Do you really want me to air all your dirty laundry in this public place?" I shouted, kicking the floor in frustration. "What dirty laundry have I done?" He raised an eyebrow still with his calm tone with a shamelessness that went to his core. I felt such a great hatred that I wanted to bite him to death. "It's because of Paige." As if a sore spot had been touched, I immediately fell silent. I pressed my lips together tightly and looked at him with reddened eyes. "Yes, it's because of Paige. What does that have to do with you? Because she argued with her husband, got divorced, and came back? You have to do the same thing, Elena. I can tolerate my wife being capricious and sometimes getting into trouble outside. But everything has a limit." He rubbed his forehead with his hand as if he were tired. "Stop this drama and come home with me right now." I felt as if my heart had been carelessly thrown by him and coldly trampled. He still thinks I'm making a scene, that I'm looking for a fight for no reason. How could I make him understand I wanted to tell him? "Alexander, Elena doesn't want to love you anymore. She doesn't want to be your wife, doesn't want to continue being someone who isn't loved or cared for." But at that moment, just seeing his slightly tired face, my heart still ached. The shirt he was wearing, I chose it. The tie, I bought it. And even the socks and underwear he was wearing, I washed them with my own hands. I, who had never washed a sock for my own father, had loved him so much. If he just called me darling once right now, if he just hugged me once, my heart would surely soften and I would give in. But he had no intention of comforting me anymore because Paige was back. A man is only tender and patient with the woman he loves. Poor Elena, your husband doesn't love you. The relationship between him and Paige was suffocating me. I took a deep breath, and to protect the last shred of my pride, I lifted my chin so as not to surrender. "Alexander, how many times do I have to tell you for you to understand I want a divorce? There is no room for negotiation. Elena, think carefully. Divorce is not a game. I have thought about it very carefully from the beginning. From the moment I proposed the divorce, I haven't hesitated once." He looked at me deeply. A moment later, he let out a short laugh, as if laughing at himself. I didn't understand why he was laughing, nor did I want to understand, because immediately after he said, "All right," the divorce process was very fast. Since I didn't claim a division of assets, everything was extremely simple. When the clerk stamped the blue marriage certificate, Alexander looked at me one last time. My mind was blank and I said coldly, "Please hurry, I have things to do." He said nothing more and we quickly got our divorce certificates. I took my copy, put on my sunglasses, and walked out the door. Alexander seemed to follow me. Maybe it was my imagination. There was only one exit, so he had to go that way too. I got in my car and drove away. I didn't look back at him once. At a red light while I was waiting, I finally came back to my senses. I looked at the blue certificate in my hand and broke down. I gripped the steering wheel and cried inconsolably. The car behind me, blocked by mine, started honking, but I didn't care. Only when a traffic officer knocked on my window and asked what was wrong did I manage to pull myself together and drive away. I went back to the apartment my father had bought me before I got married. I showered, changed, and sat in a trance hugging my teddy bear. But not even 10 minutes had passed when my phone started ringing like crazy. I had no intention of picking it up or looking at it, but the caller seemed to have no intention of stopping calling every few seconds. With an unbearable headache, I picked up the phone to turn it off and saw the name, Monica Astor. Instantly, all my fighting cells awakened. I grabbed the phone like an angry little beast. My eyes shone with suspicion and ferocity. Monica Astor wanted to see Elena Foster humiliated. Not in her dreams. I pressed the call button. My whole body was on guard, but the first sentence she screamed left me frozen. "Elena, are you crazy? How dare you divorce Alexander for Marcus King?" I was petrified. Marcus King. When did I ever divorce for Marcus King? I hadn't been with him for ages. He was my first love, yes, but we were kids and didn't know what love was. Now I barely remember his face. "Elena, did you get shot in the head?" As soon as Marcus King announces he's broken up with his girlfriend and is coming back to New York to start a business, you go and pull this stunt of divorcing Alexander. Monica was screaming like a madwoman on the other end of the phone. Why was she so worked up about my divorce? If I got divorced, it was a great opportunity for her. She liked Alexander that much. "Elena, who do you think you are? I was dying to marry him, and you get to marry him whenever you want, and leave him whenever you feel like it. Besides having slightly fairer skin and being a little prettier, what do you have that I don't? Why, when Alexander was heartbroken, he chose you and not me." Monica was crying while insulting me, and I, holding the phone, felt even more like crying. It turns out everyone knew he had gotten married suddenly on the rebound, and I was the only one who didn't know. I married him like a fool, thrilled. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep from excitement. Now that I think about it, all of New York must have seen me as an idiot. I hung up. At this point, I couldn't even shed a tear. I stared at the teddy bear in front of me. He had given it to me on Children's Day, the year we started dating. After much insisting, although he thought it was silly, he bought it for me himself. I cherished it, and slept, hugging it every night. But now I don't need you anymore, and I don't need a teddy bear like you either. Get lost with him. I grabbed the bear by the ear, jumped up and opened the door to throw it out, but as I opened it, I came face to face with a familiar, kind, smiling face. It was Marcus King. He was grinning from ear to ear and hugged me with open arms. "Elena, I'm back." Just then, behind him, the elevator door opened with a ding. The figure of Alexander Pierce gradually appeared in my field of vision. The teddy bear I was holding in my hand fell to the floor with a dull thud. "Elena, what's wrong with you?" Marcus asked sweetly. My whole body had gone rigid as a stone. I couldn't say anything, nor did I have the strength to push him away. I could only stare at Alexander, who was standing there motionless. His expression was icy. Marcus finally noticed something was wrong, let go of me, and turned around. His gaze, once warm, lost its smile when it met Alexander's. Alexander's gaze was like a thin layer of frost, capable of freezing anyone with just a touch. I trembled. I took a stumbling step back and tried to close the door to hide, but Marcus grabbed my hand. I instinctively turned to look at Alexander. His face was terribly dark, his lips pressed into a straight line. I could imagine the force with which he was clenching his teeth. "Elena," Alexander said, but didn't continue. As if I had received an electric shock, I immediately pulled my hand away from Marcus. "It's not what you think." I didn't know he was outside. I just opened the door and he hugged me. I tried to explain, stuttering, but the more I rushed, the worse the words came out. "Mr. Pierce, I don't know what to say." Why had these two men appeared at the same time? One, my newly divorced ex-husband. The other, my childhood first love. Ironically, even Monica thought I had gotten a divorce because of Marcus. And the most ironic thing of all was that Alexander had caught me hugging my old flame right after we divorced. I was exhausted from it all. I felt like my whole body was going to fall apart. Not knowing what to do, I shouted, "I don't care, think whatever you want." With that, I turned to go back inside, but suddenly everything went black and the world started spinning. In that instant, hundreds of romance novels I had read in my teens flashed through my mind. I cleverly let myself fall in the direction of the teddy bear. In case no one caught me, at least it would hurt less. Elena, I closed my eyes. I heard Marcus call my name with concern, but the person who caught me in his arms had a familiar, comforting scent, a mixture of soft tobacco and citrus. Those arms were firm and strong, and they held me just as I was about to fall. It was Alexander. I was instantly relieved and kept my eyes closed until we were in the car. When I heard Alexander yell at the driver to go straight to the hospital, I opened my eyes. I gently pulled on his sleeve. He looked down at me and I moved away from his arms. I was faking. "I'm fine. We don't need to go to the hospital. Elena." His face darkened. I avoided his gaze and muttered. What happened before was a misunderstanding. I didn't know he was at the door. As soon as I opened it, he hugged me, and before I could push him away, you arrived. "Are you explaining this to me?" "Of course. I'm not going to let myself be unjustly accused of betrayal." I looked him straight in the eye. "Besides, I broke up with him a long time ago and we haven't had any contact since. The divorce has nothing to do with him. You're already defending him. What nonsense." "I'm just telling the truth." "Elena, you'd better not try to fool me." Alexander's voice was as cold as ice. "If you're fine, get out of the car." I felt as if someone had stabbed me hard in the heart. I bit my lip and glanced at his truly handsome profile, the sharp jawline, every line exuding masculinity. I loved his Adam's apple, especially when we were intimate. If I gave him a light kiss on the neck and nibbled his chin, he would become even more intense. Except now the thought that Paige had probably done the same made me sick. I opened the car door and got out. I didn't say anything or look back. That's why I didn't see that Alexander from the other side of the car never stopped looking at my back. His gaze didn't move until I had completely disappeared from his sight. My mood was in the dumps for a week. During that time, Marcus tried to contact me in every possible way, but I rejected them all. I didn't leave the house until Anna called me to go shopping and have tea. We shopped like crazy bags, dresses. There's definitely nothing that makes a woman happier than shopping. I ordered a large vanilla bean frappuccino, and just as I was about to put the straw in, a slender shadow appeared in front of me. I looked up and saw Paige. She was looking at me with a slightly guilty expression. Elena. Her voice was as light as the wind. I examined her. Dark hair, a long beige dress, light makeup. She wasn't a stunning beauty, but she was pure and sweet. The type of woman men really like. But we weren't friends. Why was she calling me by my name so naturally? "What do you want? Can we talk for a moment?" "No. Elena, I know you've had a very hard time because of me." Her voice trembled. She had barely said 4 words, and she was already on the verge of tears. No. If she cries, Alexander will come and strangle me." I quickly put down my drink and changed my tone. "Miss Hamilton, what do you have to say to me? That corner seems quieter. Let's go there." Paige, with her eyes red like a little rabbit's, nodded meekly. "Yes, okay." Anna and I looked at each other. We read a word in each other's eyes. Wow, no wonder Alexander took such good care of her. With this fragile lotus flower style, if I were a man, my heart would soften too. I felt bitter. There was a time when I also tried to act docile to win Alexander's heart. Thinking about it, I was a fool. Look at Paige, so naturally sweet. No wonder after 2 years of giving him my body countless times he didn't love me. I followed her. Her way of walking in heels was as elegant as a lotus. Me with my shorts and t-shirt and my hair in a messy bun looked like a teenager who hadn't hit puberty yet. My shoulders slumped. But in front of his favorite, no matter how much I dressed up, Alexander wouldn't turn around, so I might as well be myself. It's easier to breathe. "Elena, I know you and Alexander got divorced because of me." As soon as we sat down, Paige got straight to the point. Oh my God, this was exactly the beginning of the 300 romance novels I had read. I grinned from ear to ear and looked at her. "Yes, that's right. It's because of you." She paused for a moment, her eyes reddening, and she gently took my hand. "Elena, don't misunderstand me. Alexander and I are just old college friends. He helped me for old time's sake. Besides, if there was anything between us, it was a long time ago. You don't have to worry. The fact that you got divorced suddenly weighs heavily on my heart. If I've caused any discord between you, I really couldn't forgive myself. If you're so aware, why did you get so close to a married man? If you feel guilty, why did you let him stay at your house? Were you comfortable using someone else's husband? She paused again. Elena, it's a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? That you two cuddled under the blankets. I got divorced. I was emotionally unstable and had jet lag after coming back. Alexander was worried, and that's why he stayed. Her eyes filled with tears. Elena, really, there's nothing between Alexander and me. We're clean. If there had been those kinds of feelings, I would have married him a long time ago. Elena Alexander is at a crucial point in his career and is very busy. Don't make scenes at times like this. You're 25 now, not a child. Alexander said you're still immature, but after 2 years of marriage, you should have some judgment. She was lecturing me as if she were my mother. Not even my own father had spoken to me like that. Have you said enough? You have nothing more to say. If not, I'm leaving. Elena, I'm telling you this with good intentions. I don't want to see you two break up. Alexander is an important person in my life. I want him to be happy. We've already signed the divorce papers. If you want to make him happy, take him quickly and marry him. If Miss Hamilton gets married, he'll be happy, and his mother-in-law and sister-in-law will be even happier. The whole family happy and united. Congratulations in advance on becoming the new Mrs. Pierce. I kept smiling as I looked at her, but the hand I hid behind my back was clenched so tightly that my knuckles had turned white. The palm of my hand hurt as if it was going to tear. No matter how much it hurt, I couldn't show her a single tear. That damn Alexander had dared to belittle me in front of his first love. Yes, I'm immature, childish, and without judgment. But who married me? Who promised to treat me well, take care of me, and always make me happy? Before the wedding, he himself took me to his late mother's grave, knelt down and swore he would take care of me like a child. And then he was the same one who accused me of being childish and immature. But for 2 years as his wife, I got up early to make breakfast. I took care of the house and even cleaned Caroline's room and washed her clothes. I went shopping with his mother, carried her bag, served her water, and played cards with her. I accompanied his father to medical checkups and learned to cook him nutritious broths. When he came home drunk and felt sick, I made him hangover drinks. When he went on a business trip for a month, I missed him so much that I cried in the middle of the night, but I didn't dare call him or video chat so as not to bother him. For 2 years of marriage, the time he spent at home could be counted on one hand. My world revolved around him, and gradually, it began to revolve around the entire Pierce family. No matter how much they despised me, I gritted my teeth and endured it because I loved him. Like a fool, I put into practice the phrase, to love everything that belongs to the person you love. If I sometimes threw a tantrum or was stubborn, it was only to get a little attention from my husband, but he was always cold. He only kissed me and whispered some sweet words when he felt like it. The rest of the time, always with that ascetic face distant like a stranger. And I'm supposed to be more judicious, more mature. For more than 2 years, I haven't been happy for a single moment. And when I finally firmly demand a divorce, his lover comes to laugh at me and ridicule me. What else do I have to endure? If Paige continued to provoke me, I was ready to make a scene for both of them to see. Even a worm will turn. But she didn't give me the chance. Maybe my last words had angered her because she turned pale as a ghost. She was so white and crying in such a pathetic way that I was about to ask Anna for help. Then Paige reached out to me. I instinctively thought she was going to hit me and pushed her hand away, but she stumbled and fell to the floor limply like a sack of feathers. Anna ran over in alarm. As we were about to help her up, she suddenly clutched her stomach and moaned in a weak voice. Elena, please call an ambulance. I'm pregnant. I'm still taking progesterone for the pregnancy. Hearing that, Anna turned to look at me. I was also stunned for a few seconds, and then I understood something. Alexander and she hadn't just recently reconnected. Last year on my birthday, they met abroad. This year, he had also gone on a business trip there. He had invested time, effort, and money in Paige's international divorce. Then the child she was carrying in her womb, it had to be Alexander's. All the strength, coldness, and resignation I had built up collapsed in that instant. I stood there stunned, my vision blurred. Anna shook me in alarm. Elena, don't be scared. If you want to cry, cry. Don't just stand there like that. You're scaring me. Tears welled up, but my throat was blocked by an invisible hand. I couldn't cry out loud or speak. It oppressed me, suffocated me, my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. I didn't want to imagine those scenes. Alexander, lying next to Paige, him kissing her. I didn't want to imagine how much he would tell her he loved her when they were together. They took her to the emergency room and she went into the examination room. I also felt a heaviness in my lower abdomen, maybe from drinking something cold. I went to the bathroom and saw a red blood stain on my underwear. I thought my period had started and put on a pad from my spare supply. When I came back from the bathroom, I saw Alexander rushing out of the elevator and walking toward the examination room. Even from his back, you could see the worry and panic. Suddenly, I couldn't stand and leaned against the wall. Only when he disappeared from my sight did I turn and leave the hospital like a lost soul. On the way home, my father called me. "Elena, were you two getting along? Why do you want to divorce Alexander?" My father's voice was heavy with fatigue. "In recent years, thanks to Alexander, I've been able to keep some businesses afloat. Now that you're divorced, all the projects have been canceled and I've lost $20 million. Elena, what am I going to do now?" I stood on the sidewalk looking at the scorching sun. I had gained $20 million, and my father had lost $20 million. Without Alexander's support, my father's business was collapsing without remedy. I couldn't watch my aging father continue to struggle. So I started sending out resumes. I studied design, but without experience, most rejected me. Fortunately, when one door closes, a window opens. A small advertising agency accepted me as an intern. The salary was low and the work was hard. Since I was little, my father had raised me in cotton wool. After my mother died prematurely so I wouldn't suffer, he never remarried and raised me alone. He had never let me endure hardship. That's why I was somewhat fragile, raised like a princess. The hard work was difficult for me, but I held on firmly. Only the pain in my heart was hard to swallow, especially when Caroline, using someone else's account, sent me some photos. They were all screenshots of Paige's social media posts. In one, she was tenderly caressing her belly with a serene smile. The caption read, "Thank goodness you're okay. So lucky to have you. Thank you, life, for giving me this person, this emotion. Stay by my side always." Expressionless, I blocked that account. After that, Paige was quiet for a while. I immersed myself in extra work. I didn't want to go home and overthink things, but one night while working overtime, I went to get water and fainted. They took me to the hospital. In a moment of lucidity, I called Anna. When the doctor, after examining me, informed me that I was 5 weeks pregnant, I was in complete shock. Anna, excited, wanted to call Alexander, but I grabbed her hand tightly. If he didn't care about me, he would care even less about my child. He doesn't love me. He can't love a child of mine. If I tell him, he'll think I'm imitating Paige. Yes, he'll think that even in pregnancy I'm imitating her. Anna saw my pale face and burst into tears. I wanted to comfort her, but as soon as I opened my mouth, tears streamed down my face. I don't want this child. I don't want them to live their whole life without receiving complete love, but I couldn't do it. This child was Alexander's and mine. If it's a girl, Alexander might like her a little. If it's a boy, he'll grow up to be as tall and handsome as him. I hugged my belly and curled up. Gored up. I didn't dare. I didn't dare to think anymore. I heard the door open. Thinking it was Marcus, I said wearily, "Mr. King, how many times do I have to tell you I really can't get back with you?" But there was no answer. I heard the door close very quietly. I immediately opened my eyes and turned. Alexander was approaching. He was still dressed as usual in a black suit shirt tie belt, all chosen by me. He was still wearing glasses. He probably just came from the office. His face showed fatigue. He seemed a little thinner, and the dark circles under his eyes were more pronounced. I turned my head to the other side. I knew he had stayed up all night again, that his life was irregular again. "Anna told me you were sick and in the hospital." He came over and sat on the edge of my bed. Completely naturally, he took my hand. I had just had my IV removed, and my hand where the needle had been was cold. He took it and frowned. "Why are your hands so cold?" I closed my eyes and tried to pull my hand away, but he held it gently. "Elena," he said my name. I felt a lump in my throat. Although my eyes were closed, tears fell silently. "The company has been very busy lately. You know," I said nothing, but he continued. But I couldn't concentrate. "Elena, if I haven't come to see you these past few days, it's because I've been thinking carefully about why you wanted the divorce." I still didn't want to talk, but the tears wouldn't stop falling. At first, I thought it was because of Marcus. "That's why you were so determined to break up." At that moment, I was so angry and so stupid that I agreed. His voice was deep-tinged with regret. I couldn't help it. I opened my eyes and looked at him. "Alexander, you don't know." "Elena." I was wrong. I didn't understand anything. He squeezed my hand. His eyes were full of apology and regret. I shook my head vehemently. You don't know. You'll never understand why I had to insist on the divorce. I'm like that. Stubborn with pride that reaches the sky. I don't tolerate a single speck of dust in my eyes. I'd rather suffer alone than give in. Because of work. I've neglected you these 2 years. I've missed so many things. I kept shaking my head. It's not because of work. I'm not an immature child anymore. I know how important work is for a man. I've sent Caroline to study abroad. I'm only giving her $500 a month for her expenses. The rest she'll have to earn herself. I was surprised. Alexander only had one sister and their relationship was very close. He had always spoiled her. $500 was enough for a normal student, but for her, who was used to spending, it wouldn't even cover a dress. If you hadn't asked for the divorce, I would probably still be fooled by her. His gaze was cold, but when he looked at me, it was full of regret. The truth is, I had never blamed him for work. Caroline was a very good actress. Every time he was home, she pretended to be the good sister. I didn't want him to worry about the trivialities of the house, so I never complained. Anyway, those little things didn't make me lose weight. I could bear them. My firm decision to divorce was what burst the abscess. Caroline, too triumphant, revealed her true face in front of him. When she learns to respect you as her sister-in-law, then we'll talk. You don't have to be so harsh. She just doesn't like me as a sister-in-law. It's not a great sin. Whether she likes it or not, she has to accept it. Whether she likes it or not, she has to swallow it. My only wife is you, Elena. But Paige, you've always liked her. Who says I like her? He frowned and tapped my forehead lightly. Where do you get such weird ideas? But you saved a photo of the two of you on your computer, and you helped her with her divorce. And last year on my birthday, you said you were going on a business trip, and in the end, you were having tea with her. And I didn't even get a happy birthday. My voice broke. I have a lot of self-esteem and pride, so I had never dared to ask these things. The photo. You mean the one in that folder? She was smiling so sweetly at you. You mean this one? He took out his phone and showed me a photo. It was the same one that was on his computer. I nodded vigorously. That one. Unexpectedly, Alexander started to laugh. He was a man who almost never laughed. This man was originally strict, cold, almost ruthless. In the 2 years I was his wife, the times he had smiled at me could be counted on one hand. I was dazed without realizing it. He took off his glasses and with a resigned smile shook his head. Then he reached out and brushed my bangs away. Silly girl. His silly girl was so tender it almost made me swoon. Look at the photo again, top left. Isn't there someone you know? I quickly dried my tears, opened my eyes wide, and looked carefully. In the upper left corner were two people, a couple. The girl had dark blue dyed hair, a crop top, and a very modern pleated skirt. Beside her, a tall, handsome boy matched her. But what surprised me was, that's me. My eyes widened. Why am I in the photo? Wait a minute. The one next to me looks like Marcus. It must be from when I was dating him in college. I looked at Alexander, stunned. What's going on? That day, I went to the university for a matter, and as I passed the sports field, I saw you. I was going to say hello, but then your boyfriend appeared. His voice was calm, but I thought I detected a slight tone of jealousy. Lies, I didn't know you back then. We met on the blind date. Alexander suddenly stared at me. Elena, you broke the promise first. You forgot me first. I was completely perplexed. He, a little angry, returned to his usual coldness. If you don't remember, forget it. Get some rest. Alexander, I instinctively grabbed his sleeve, about to pout, when I suddenly remembered we were divorced. I quickly let go of his hand. He looked at his watch. I have to go to a meeting. It's very important. I'll come pick you up in the afternoon for you to be discharged. We'll have another checkup together. Just as he was about to get up, I couldn't help but ask, Alexander, is Paige really pregnant? He looked at me. Yes. I felt as if someone was squeezing my heart tightly. My small body seemed even more petite inside the loose hospital pajamas. Alexander's gaze softened. He came over and caressed my cheek tenderly. Don't think nonsense and get some rest. I wanted to ask if her child was his, but the words wouldn't come out. We took her to the hospital in time, so she's fine. Don't worry too much. And even if something really happened, it has nothing to do with you. He thought I was worried about the safety of Paige's fetus. I got so angry that I didn't want to talk anymore. I pushed him and said, go to your meeting quickly. It seemed he really was busy. He told me to rest, and left in a hurry. My mind was a mess of tangled threads, and I couldn't stay in the hospital any longer. Besides, he said that in the afternoon he would take me for another checkup, and I didn't want him to know I was pregnant. I changed, discharged myself secretly, and went home. Perhaps because of the pregnancy, my body fell asleep easily. After showering, I lay down and fell asleep instantly. When I woke up, I heard a faint noise outside and opened the door. "You're awake!" Alexander was standing by the dining table and turned to look at me. He was still in a black shirt and pants, slim waist, firm body, no slippers. He walked over and seeing my bare feet on the cold floor, he frowned slightly and brought me some slippers. He bent down and put them on for me. Finally, I called his name. "Alexander." "The day Paige came back, were you with her?" He finished putting on my slippers, sat me at the table, and only then answered. "That day, I was at the office all night working." "You're not tricking me. I've never tricked you, Elena. You're the one who has never wanted to believe me." He reached out and caressed my face. "Last year on your birthday, when I said I was going on a business trip, the trip was real. But meeting her was a coincidence. That day, she asked me to introduce her to a lawyer, and from then on we started having contact. I didn't know who to believe, but the words he had just said, I wanted to believe them. But what about those ambiguous messages on Paige's social media? I suddenly remembered and went to get my phone. I had saved the screenshots Caroline had sent me. "Look at this." I showed the photos to Alexander. He was silent, then took out his own phone and opened Paige's social media. She had it set to show only the last 6 months, but that post wasn't there. It was clear she had hidden that post from him. I suddenly understood. Alexander felt nothing for her, but Paige did. That day she was just playing me. Thinking about it, it was true they hadn't been together that day. Alexander's expression hardened. Men don't like women who use these kinds of tricks. "Maybe she just wanted to remember the old times with you," I said, still uncomfortable. After all, they were college classmates and were very close. "What old times?" He seemed annoyed. "In college, she was my best friend's girlfriend, the one next to her in the photo. I helped her out of loyalty to old times." He looked at me deeply. "That friend died in an accident. Before he left, he asked me to take care of Paige. Her American husband was an abuser and cheated on her when she was pregnant. That's why I got her the best lawyer from the group to help with the international divorce." I felt guilty and my voice softened. "I'm sorry, I thought that child was yours. Is that all you have in your head?" He pinched my cheek angrily. "Having one like you is enough for me. Do you think I have time to look at others?" It hurt, and I wanted to protest. Clearly, I was the one who couldn't handle him. He looked at me. His gaze gradually changed. I was suddenly scared and instinctively covered my belly. Since I asked for the divorce, we hadn't been intimate. I knew he wasn't easily satisfied. It seems dinner would have to wait. Alexander lifted me into his arms and headed for the bedroom. My heart was pounding. When he laid me on the bed and started unbuttoning his shirt, I quickly wrapped my arms around his waist, hid my face in his chest, and whispered, "Alexander, I have a baby in my belly." "We can't do that right now, can we?" His fingers unbuttoning his shirt paused for a moment. I snuggled into his arms, nervous, biting my lip hard. My fingers intertwined behind his waist also tightened, forming a small knot of tension. "Elena." He put a hand on the back of my neck. "Alexander, I'm not imitating Paige. Getting pregnant is not something you can imitate. This baby appeared because you bullied me." I burrowed deeper into his chest. His scent, his warmth. I missed it like crazy. The last night we spent together, we had run out of condoms at home. Alexander had always been careful and had never neglected those things. But that night, for some reason, he was especially intense and rough. For the first time, he didn't insist on protection, even though he knew it was my safe period. But there are always exceptions to everything. Now that I think about it, it was probably when the news spread that Marcus had broken up with his girlfriend and was preparing to come back. His behavior that night was probably out of jealousy. A faint sweetness bloomed in my heart, but I was afraid it was just my imagination. "So you fainted because you were pregnant." He gently caressed the back of my neck. His long, slender fingers slid through my hair and finally hugged me tightly. "I fainted. They took me to the hospital. And there I found out I was pregnant. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was angry with you. I thought you and Paige were going to have a child." Elena, Alexander said with a tone of resignation but a little angry. "Do you have any clear idea about things? What? I'm your husband. Other women have nothing to do with me." Alexander then tell me, "Did you marry me because you liked me?" I was completely confused. I felt that if he said just one affectionate word to me, I would be sold and I would happily count the money. Of course not. A single sentence from Alexander made me fall from my beautiful dream to reality. It was because you're silly. He had an expression of complete helplessness. Elena, did a high fever affect your brain as a child? A man like me who runs the entire Pierce Corporation with my own hands, even if I can't completely decide my own marriage, I hold the reins. Your family isn't poor, but compared to ours, it's nothing. Your father depends on me for his business. He doesn't provide me with any help. Stop it, I grabbed his sleeve. Alexander, don't tell me you've always been secretly in love with me, and that's why you kept that photo that wasn't even a decent portrait of us. Alexander suddenly lowered his head. Just as I finished speaking, he took my face in both hands and kissed me. I tried to say something else, but he kissed me more deeply. Soon I felt dizzy from his kiss melting in his arms. I couldn't think about anything. Of course, in the end, we didn't do anything. I lay face down on the pillow blushing, and Alexander went to the bathroom to take a cold shower. Listening to the sound of the running water from inside and thinking about the situation before I buried my face in the pillow and laughed silently. The next morning, Alexander took me to the gynecologist. When we arrived, we ran into Paige, who was also there for a checkup. Her gaze flickered for a moment, but when she saw me, it darkened and her face took on a fragile, pitiable expression. Alexander quickly approached with a kind smile. I didn't like it, but since Alexander had his arm around my waist and didn't let go for a second, despite Paige's presence, I didn't bother to get angry. I'm not a resentful person. In a good way, I'm carefree. In a bad way, I'm silly. So I don't care about injustices. Paige. As if I didn't exist, she spoke to Alexander. Alexander, in a few days, there's a college alumni reunion. Will you come? I haven't seen our friends in years, so I don't think I can go. Why? Are you very busy with work? Elena is pregnant, and I want to spend more time with her. Alexander gave her a very faint smile. If you have nothing else to say, I'm going to take Elena to her appointment. Paige's face turned white. She clearly didn't expect this situation at all. She stood there, stunned for a moment without saying anything. Alexander hugged me and went straight into the doctor's office. Paige called from behind. Alexander, you two got divorced. So Elena, she stammered, not speaking clearly on purpose. It was her usual tactic. I didn't open my mouth. The Paige issue was something Alexander had caused, so he should resolve it. What do you mean? Or do you think I'm so stupid as to be manipulated by anyone? His words were actually quite harsh. That's not it, Alexander. I was just worried you were being deceived. Paige put on her on the verge of tears face again. I shook my head slightly and opened my mouth. My husband does seem like someone you have to worry about being deceived, doesn't he? Miss Hamilton, Elena. What do you mean by that? Alexander and I have known each other for many years. How could I deceive him? I didn't answer, just smiled and looked at Alexander. Paige, after speaking, seemed to realize she had put her foot in her mouth and immediately put on a remorseful face. To be honest, your relationship with my friend was just a college romance. Before he left, he asked me to take care of you. In these years, I have fulfilled my duty. Miss Hamilton, Elena just found out she's pregnant. She needs peace and quiet and to avoid shocks. In the future, I would appreciate it if you would avoid saying ambiguous things that could lead to misunderstandings in front of her. Oh, and also that you stop posting things on social media that could lead to misunderstandings. With that, Alexander didn't give her time to say anything else and took me to the appointment. When we came out of the office, Paige was already gone. She won't appear in front of you again. Alexander gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. Elena, in the future, could you tell me things first? But you were too busy before. You always came back very late, and in the morning when I got up, you were already gone. The time I could see you was very little. That's why I didn't know how your family treated me. With your father at home, your mother, even if she didn't like it, had to keep up appearances. Alexander looked at me for a long time and suddenly hugged me. I've had the villa on the estate prepared. From today on, we'll live there alone. Alexander didn't expect me to say something like that. You're the eldest son. You just sent Caroline to study abroad. Your parents only have you with them. I was wrong before. I brought you home and didn't protect you. I don't know how much you've suffered. Alexander gently wiped the corner of my reddened eyes. Elena, I'm sorry. My tears immediately welled up. Alexander, I don't blame you. I had many flaws too. If I had been more mature and judicious, maybe your mother would have liked me more. That doesn't matter. As long as I like you, that's enough. Alexander gently dried my tears, but I cried even more. Alexander, I'm very childish and immature. I'm not like other wives, kind mature who does everything right. You don't have to be like anyone else. You just have to be Elena. You talk a good game. Who was the one who wouldn't let me dye my hair or wear skirts or shorts? Alexander suddenly laughed, leaned in, and gave me a light kiss on my wet eyes. His high nose gently brushed against mine, rubbing affectionately. Silly girl. What husband wants his wife to dress like that for other men to look at? But I was wrong before. From now on, dress however you want. If you like it, I won't interfere. Of course, he still had other reasons I didn't know. In college, I always dressed flashy, and Marcus had a very sophisticated Western style. The two of us together looked very good. Later, after meeting me on the blind date, Alexander subtly influenced me to change my style. I thought he liked the sweet feminine style, but in reality he wanted to erase any trace of Marcus from me. He looked at the small woman in his arms, the girl who in the pouring rain cried while hugging a stuffed rabbit in front of her mother's grave, the girl who had moved his heart and whom he could never forget. Now she was his wife and would soon be the mother of his child. He wanted her to always be pure, always like a child. He would carry the whole world on his shoulders to protect all the pure beauty within her. So you were jealous, right, Alexander? Say it. You were jealous, right? I grabbed his shirt collar, shaking it and pouting. You don't want to admit you fell for my beauty, right? You didn't like other men looking at my thin waist and long legs, right? Right. Do you think you still have a thin waist? He touched my still flat belly, whispering in my ear. To tease me. That's because of the baby. You can't make fun of me for being fat because I'm pregnant, I protested loudly, sticking out my belly on purpose. Alexander, even if I get fat, you have to love me. You have to love me. Be careful, the baby might hear you and laugh at his mommy. Alexander resigned, took my hand. Aren't you hungry? Didn't you want to eat hot pot? The baby is the size of a pea. What is he going to understand to laugh at? I squeezed his hand tightly. Our 10 fingers intertwined. He was originally a cold and strict person. I had never heard him say harsh words, but now hearing the words that had slipped out of me, he just frowned without scolding me at all. I suddenly realized, before there were many small details between us that allowed me to realize that he was always tolerating me. But I never paid attention to them before. He silently endured my capricious nature, my clumsiness in speaking, and even my messiness and clumsiness. The time he spent at home wasn't much, but every time he came back, no matter how late, he would kiss me even when I was sound asleep. And every morning when he left, he always gave me a farewell kiss. In the 2.5 years as his wife, he got up at 6 a.m. every day. But I, his wife, almost never got up with him. I rarely made him breakfast or tied his tie. I suddenly felt that I really wasn't up to par. I immersed myself in negative emotions, magnifying my complaints and doubts, forgetting his sacrifices and his tolerance. It was that insecurity that made me unhappy, and that made him, busy as he was, feel confused by my useless tantrums. Honey, as soon as we sat down in the car, I couldn't help but hug him. The truth is, I almost never called him honey. Only in bed when we were intimate did he make me call him that. I buried my face in his broad back. The sweetness in my heart gradually devoured the resentment. This is my man, my husband, the father of my child. I am very lucky to have married this man. Are you not feeling well? Alexander turned with concern, taking me by the shoulders and asking in a low voice. I shook my head and held out my arms for him to hug me. Before unsure of his feelings, I would pout at him. Now that I knew he cared about me, I wanted to pout at him all day. Alexander hugged me. Why have you become so clingy? Because I want to be clingy with you. Didn't dare before. You didn't dare? I don't know who has been so clingy since we got married. He gave me a light kiss on my earlobe. Liar, when have I not? Every time you said you were tired, that it hurt, and after I tended to you with all my strength, you would hug me crying and say I was bullying you. It's because you really were bullying me, taking advantage of being tall and strong. It's that you don't know how to appreciate your luck. What if I give it to someone else? Don't even dream of it. I'd die of exhaustion. This luck is only for me. Alexander kissed me. Let's eat first. After we eat at home, we'll settle accounts slowly. He took me to eat hot pot. He didn't like places with oily smells, but since I liked it, he accompanied me. When we finished eating, as we were about to leave, we ran into Monica Astor. She had come to eat hot pot with some friends. As soon as she saw Alexander and me holding hands, Monica bit her lip and her eyes reddened. I had been Alexander's wife for over 2 years, and she still didn't seem to have gotten used to it. Monica, angry, puffed out her cheeks. She looked like a pufferfish, and honestly, it was a little cute. Thinking about it, even though we hated each other, Monica wasn't the type to conspire behind your back. So we didn't really have a deep grudge. It was just that since we were little, I liked to tease her, and today was no different. As we passed by her, Monica looked at me furiously and asked, "Elena, are you two back together?" I nodded. "Yes, we're back together." Monica was jealous and angry but said one thing. "You weren't entirely stupid." "Oh, the last time you called me, you told me that Alexander had married anyone out of spite." Remember, Monica embarrassed glanced at Alexander and tried to explain something. I continued triumphantly. "I'm sorry, but the person who spited him was probably also me." What? Monica clearly didn't believe it. Her eyes widened. "Quiet. You're going to scare the baby in my belly." I immediately hugged my belly and snuggled into Alexander's arms. He, cooperating, hugged me tightly. "Elena, you're pregnant." Monica looked shocked. "Didn't Alexander say he hated you and wouldn't have children with you? Who says that?" Before I could answer, Alexander's expression turned icy. Monica, scared, stammered, "Well, people were rumoring it. Caroline said it too. I was just repeating what I heard. I didn't make it up." "Do you think I would marry a woman I don't love?" Monica quickly shook her head. She almost started crying. I pulled on his sleeve. "That's enough. I'm sleepy. Let's go home." Alexander said nothing more and carried me in his arms. I turned to look at Monica and said with a smile, "Monica, you're actually very beautiful. I'm sure a man who truly loves you will appear." Monica was used to arguing with me and reflexively wanted to retort, but she seemed to hold back because of Alexander's presence. It seems that happy people become kinder and more generous. Even with Monica, my childhood enemy, I wanted to wish her the best. When I reached 3 months of pregnancy, the doctor said my condition was very stable, and the fetus was growing well subtly, hinting that Alexander and I could resume our marital life. But since my belly had grown a little and my waist was no longer as thin as before, I felt a little embarrassed. That night, after Alexander helped me bathe and we returned to the room, I got under the covers and didn't show my face until he came out of the shower. He lifted the covers. His body still gave off the coolness of the shower water. I was so embarrassed I didn't even look at him. Even though we had been married for several years, at that moment it felt like our first night. Much later, when the sound of rain started outside, everything ended. I snuggled in his arms, lazy, not wanting to say anything. His breath enveloped me, giving me an incomparable sense of security. "Alexander." Our baby. What do you think if we name him Sprout?" "That's a bit of a weird name. It's cute, like a sprout that grows into a plant, as if it's sprouting in my belly." "Then we'll have to find him an elegant name later. I'll think about it. I've studied more than you." I yawned in his arms, hugged his waist and mumbled, "So sleepy. When Sprout is born, I'll tell him everything. I'll tell him his dad always bullied his mom." Yes, I think I fell asleep. That's why I didn't hear the words Alexander whispered in my ear. "Silly girl. Because I love you and I like you, I'll always want to bully you like this."